I'm Sarah Gaffen. I'm a professor at the University of Pittsburgh, just up the road. I'm a Ph.D. and I did my training, my undergraduate training was at Carnegie Mellon University. My Ph.D. was at Berkeley, and my postdoctoral fellowship was at UC San Francisco. And I've been in Pittsburgh for 6 years. Before that, I was at the University of Buffalo. One of the things I think that's special about AAI and the immunology community in general is the connectedness that we have over history. This year, you're displaying the 100-year history that was shown in Hawaii last year, and that really nicely illustrates the exciting discoveries, but that most everyone here is connected to one of the people that made those discoveries. And so as I was walking down the hallway, I saw my PhD advisor on that board, and I pointed out to my student that, hey, that's your scientific grandmother. And he sort of looked at it, and you could see that spark of realizing he's part of a fabric. And I think AAI does that kind of thing really well. I come to AAI pretty regularly, and it's mostly obviously it's for the science, but it's really for the people, colleagues that I've made over the years that I haven't seen, and I get to see their science and to catch up with them as individuals. It's especially good for trainees because they get to see the breadth of science and not just the very specific field that we work in. So I think those are things that keep me coming back and keep me sending my students year after year. Being part of AAI as an organization is certainly important in my career. I've been a member since, I think, 1999 when I started my lab, and at first I just thought it was something you do because everybody does it and then you get your discount when you submit a paper to the journal. But over time, and over not very much time, I came to appreciate how much AAI does for us as a community, particularly in terms of lobby in Congress, and in these lean funding times, that's really critical. But also to support the careers of everywhere from junior faculty to senior professors. And as a woman in science, AAI does a really great job of providing opportunities for women. A really good example is the Committee on the Status of Women, which has a list of women in the field, so people who could potentially be speakers and chairs. A problem at a lot of scientific meetings is that people invite their same old friends who often tend to be men, and they say, well, we just don't know any females who could do this. And the AAI has made it really easy for someone to quickly click and say, for any given particular field of immunology, here are some prominent women, and here's a list, and here's their contact information. So my lab works on interleukin-17, and I actually got fascinated by this cytokine back in the late 90s. Which is long before it became famous with the discovery of Th17 cells. So I was attracted to working on IL-17 from a molecular standpoint. I'm interested in cytokine receptors, having worked on IL-2 receptor, for example. So I started working on IL-17, and it was very much an obscure field, obscure area of inquiry at the time. But 5 years later, after I started my own lab, it became recognized as the signature cytokine of Th17 cells, and we all we immunologists know that really overturned the field of T-cell biology and led to lots of exciting new discoveries. My lab's contributed quite a bit to understanding the signal transduction of this cytokine, and we also started working on the role of IL-17 in oral fungal immunity. I was in a dental school at the time in Buffalo, and so I got interested in oral infections. And I have to say, it was a little bit lucky, but it turned out IL-17 is critical for immunity to fungi, particularly Candida albicans. And immediately after that, a number of groups discovered in humans that people lacking IL-17 or its receptor are susceptible. So I was very well placed and kind of coinciding with advances in the field, and my lab is now, I think, considered one of the major leaders in that area. Probably the single most important attribute of a successful scientist is being persistent and not giving up. If you really want to do it, you have to keep going. You have to be willing to fail. Your papers will get rejected. Your grants will get rejected. You've got to keep going back. But you also have to learn to seek advice and to take advice. we say that we want people to be independent, but doesn't mean we want people to work solo. Finding the right people to work with and getting their help and seeking their input, whether they can be your peers, they could be somebody slightly more senior to you, or a very senior, respected person in the field. All of those people will have advice to give, so seek it out and pay attention to it. One of the things I always tell people when they're writing grants is start it 6 months before. Have what you think is a completely final draft at least 6 weeks before it's due, because then you can get advice and you'll have time to do another experiment, to rework it. If you can't do that, then maybe delay a cycle waiting for a grant. Doing things at the last minute is kiss of death. So that's an example. If somebody comes to me and said, what's the secret to getting a grant? I mean, that's it. Do it ahead of time. So if someone gives you advice, listen to it. What I like most about AAI is really the opportunity to see the people that I've come to be close to over the years. Obviously to catch up with the science, though that happens at lots of other meetings too. AAI, I think, is special because it encompasses the whole community. So people that whose science is quite different from mine, are people that I may know. It gives me a chance to see what they're doing, and sometimes what they're doing ends up being relevant to what I'm doing, and I didn't know it, because nothing is all that far away in our field. And of course, having it in Pittsburgh is great, since this is where I live. I think we should do it here every year.